There's a story, whispered between servers and passed down through players who have spent too many hours mining alone, about an update that was never announced. They call it the silent update. No patch notes, no fanfare. One day, it simply appeared, changing the world in ways too subtle to notice at first, but impossible to ignore. Once you knew where to look, players began to notice strange things. Paths in forests that had never been traveled, torches already placed deep underground, though no one had ever been there. Abandoned houses at the edges of maps, built from strange wood types no known biome could produce. At first, they shrugged it off. Minecraft was full of random generation quirks, after all. But then came the signs that something was wrong. Tools vanished from chests. Livestock stared at walls for hours, refusing to move. The music disc, 11 inches, the one with broken sounds and gasping breath, would sometimes start playing with no jukebox in sight. They said if you loaded an old world after the silent update, you might find a new cave near your spawn, one you had never seen before, always hidden behind stone that had no business being there, as if the world itself was trying to patch over something it didn't want you to find. And if you ventured into those caves, well, the stories differed. Some players swore they found new ores, glittering faintly like wet eyes in the dark. Others claimed to hear muffled sounds, shovels digging, doors creaking open and closed, always just out of reach. But the strangest tales came from those who tried to destroy the mysterious caves. No matter how much they mined, the tunnels seemed endless. No matter how many torches they placed, darkness swallowed the light just a few steps ahead. Some said they eventually stumbled into rooms, perfect cubes with smooth walls and floors, where no tools worked and no commands could break the blocks. It was in these places, they whispered, that you could sometimes see it, a figure, tall and still, lurking just beyond the fog of render distance, not moving, not approaching, just waiting for you to stop looking. Players who stayed too long reported the same strange error message when they finally logged off. You were not supposed to see this, but no one ever found the silent update in the official files. No mod, no data pack, nothing. Only the stories remain, spreading from player to player, growing and twisting like vines, deep into the night. Tonight we'll wander through these old tales, the ones tucked away in the forgotten corners of Minecraft worlds, where no player was ever meant to tread. Close your eyes. Listen carefully. Not everything in Minecraft was made for you to find. There's an old legend that speaks of a seed, a world code passed between players in secret, never shared publicly, always by word of mouth. They called it the Forgotten Seed. Nobody knew who discovered it first. Some said it was generated by accident. Others believed it was handcrafted by someone who understood Minecraft's world code on a level beyond human comprehension. A seed that produced a world stitched together with impossible landscapes, cliffs that floated unsupported, trees growing upside down into the sky, villages buried deep underground where no sun ever touched. What made the Forgotten Seed special wasn't just the terrain. It was how it changed over time. Players who entered the world once found normal biomes, strange but navigable. But if you stayed too long, things began to shift. Structures that you hadn't built would appear on the horizon. Massive statues of things you didn't recognize. Forests where all the leaves were a slightly wrong shade of green. Almost sickly, almost watching you. And if you retraced your steps back to your original spawn, you would find it altered. Dirt paths leading away from your first shelter, torches lighting a road you hadn't placed, It was as if the world remembered you and kept building itself around your forgotten footsteps. One player, known only by their username Shadowdrift, claimed to have mapped the forgotten seed. They spent months in it, documenting every anomaly, every strange change. But then, without warning, their posts stopped. When curious followers went to look for the world download, they found only a single file left behind. A text document that read, "It knows you're looking." Since then, players who searched for the seed reported odd happenings on their own servers. Chests rearranged themselves. Bookshelves appeared with blank books inside. Some even claimed their pets. Wolves, cats, would growl or hiss at empty corners of their homes. And the strange part was, even deleting your worlds didn't always make it stop. Some players said they could hear faint sounds, scribbling, tapping, coming from their headphones late at night, even when Minecraft wasn't open. Of course, there's no evidence the Forgotten Seed ever existed. No screenshots that can't be explained. No hard proof. Just the stories passed from player to player, like whispers carried on the digital wind. But if you ever find yourself wandering in a newly generated world, and you stumble across a house you didn't build, or a trail of torches you didn't place, you might wonder, just for a moment, was this a normal world, or did you just step into something meant to be forgotten? Tonight, as we drift deeper into these quiet myths, remember, in Minecraft, the world you see isn't always the world that's really there. Every player, at some point, stumbles across a village, neatly arranged houses, fields of wheat swaying in the pixelated breeze, villagers bustling about their simple lives. But once in a while, very rarely, players report finding something different. A village where things feel wrong. They call it the Nameless Village. There's no clear sign you found it at first. Everything seems normal. The villagers move, trade, and hum like they always do. But then you start noticing the details. No name tags appear above the villagers' heads. No profession markers show. No farmers, no blacksmiths, no librarians. They're just there, and they never sleep. No matter how many nights pass, you'll never see them enter their homes, never see them lay down. Instead, they simply stand, facing outward toward the edges of the village, as if guarding something, watching for something, waiting. Players who tried interacting with the nameless villagers quickly realized they couldn't trade. Clicking on them made no sound, no familiar grunts, no offer windows. Instead, a blank box would open for a moment, then vanish. Some players swore they caught a glimpse of strange text in that flash of a window, words not in any known language, symbols that seemed to squirm as you looked at them. And there's always the well. At the center of the Nameless Village stands a well, like any other, but deeper, much deeper. Dropping a torch into it, you wouldn't see it land. Dropping a block would produce no sound, just endless darkness stretching downward. Some players built ladders to climb down the well. A few even succeeded, reaching the bottom after what felt like hundreds of blocks. But no one reported finding bedrock there. Instead, they spoke of vast empty caverns filled with more of the silent villagers, all standing still in the dark, facing outward. And in the center of that cavern, a door. Just a simple oak door, freestanding, leading nowhere. No one knows what happens if you open the door. Most players who made it that far said they logged off immediately, too unsettled to continue. A few claimed they opened it and found themselves staring into another village, identical to the first. A loop, a trap. Players who logged off inside the Nameless Village sometimes found their worlds corrupted when they returned. Chests emptied, structures warped. Even stranger, sometimes the default villager noises played quietly in the background of their game menus, echoing faintly like a memory half remembered. The nameless village doesn't appear on seeds lists. It can't be summoned with commands. It seems to exist in the spaces between generated worlds, slipping in by accident or design. No one knows. But players agree on one thing. If you ever find a village where no one sleeps, no one trades, and the villagers never look you in the eye, leave before the door finds you. Far beyond the biomes we know, past frozen oceans and jagged mountains, through endless deserts and forests where no saplings grow, players speak of a place called the Wastes, a biome that doesn't exist on any map. A place no seed should generate. The Wastes aren't listed in the game code. No updates mention them, and yet sometimes players exploring far, far from spawn, so far that chunks begin to stutter, and the sun seems stuck in the sky, find themselves there. The landscape is endless, dead grass stretching in every direction, cracked stone poking through like bones, and a sky permanently tinged with an odd yellow-gray light. There are no animals, no monsters, no sounds, except for the faint crunch of your own footsteps. And somewhere in that vast emptiness, they say, the Watcher waits. The first signs are subtle. A shadow flickering at the edge of render distance. A strange bump in the otherwise flat ground, as if something buried itself just below the surface. Players who venture further report seeing structures, monoliths made of strange materials, unfamiliar to any update, blocks that shimmer faintly, reflecting the pale light of the endless sky, and the Watcher is always near them. Players described it differently. Some said it looked like a tall figure in a deep gray cloak. Others said it was just a pair of distant glowing eyes. A few described hearing whispers, faint and urgent, but when they turned around there was nothing there. Trying to approach the Watcher never worked. No matter how fast you sprinted, no matter how many ender pearls you threw, it remained the same distance away, just at the edge of sight, just far enough that you couldn't make out its true form. If you stayed too long in the Wastes, the world itself began to resist you. Blocks would take longer to break. Hunger would drain faster. Tools would flicker, vanishing from your hotbar for a second before returning. It was as if the game itself didn't want you there. Some players, driven by curiosity, tried to set beds and sleep in the Wastes. Those few who managed it reported the same dream standing at the base of one of the monoliths, while the Watcher stood atop it, arms outstretched, as if welcoming them. When they woke up, they were always back at spawn. But something was wrong. The world subtly different. Trees grew too tall. Rivers flowed uphill. Villagers spoke in broken lines of text, and in the far distance, if you looked closely enough, you could always find a thin line of smoke curling upward into the strange-colored sky. A reminder that the Wastes was still out there, waiting. Some players say the Wastes only appear to those who travel far enough to find the end of their world. Others whisper that the Watcher brings the Wastes with it, and once you see it, you're marked. Either way, if you ever find yourself standing on cracked, dead grass under a pale sky, and you feel like someone is behind you, don't turn around, just keep walking. Among longtime players, there's a persistent rumor about a server no one admits to owning, a world that somehow appears on server lists without ever being added. They call it the Phantom Server. It shows up at strange times, often after midnight, listed simply as New World with 0 players online. No IP address, no ping, just sitting there, as if inviting you to click. Most players ignore it, but a few, the curious, the sleepless, have logged on. When you join the Phantom server, the first thing you notice is the silence. No music, no footsteps. Even punching a tree makes no sound. It's as if the entire world has been muted. The spawn point is always the same. A flat plain of cobblestone stretching endlessly under a blank gray sky. No clouds, no sun, no stars. Just a horizon that seems farther away than it should be. Players who tried running in one direction for hours said they never reached the edge. The world simply continued, cobblestone upon cobblestone, forever. There are no animals, no mobs, no items drop when you break blocks. You cannot place anything. You cannot eat. The world is static, unchanging, except for one thing. The messages, after about 5 minutes of wandering, the server begins to send chat messages. Short, broken lines of text. Do you remember? You left us. Come back. The words seem random at first, but some players swore the messages became personal, referencing old usernames, server names long since shut down, even private conversations from years ago, memories from past games, lost builds, forgotten friends. No one knows how the server could know these things. And then there's the second message, the one that only appears to players who stay too long. You're already here. At that point, most players report losing connection. Not kicked, not banned, just dropped, as if the server no longer needed them. Those who tried to rejoin often found their server lists wiped clean. Others said new worlds they generated afterward contained glitches, chunks missing, signs with blank text, doors leading into black voids. A few unlucky ones claimed that when they loaded into their single-player worlds, they spawned on endless plains of cobblestone under a gray sky. The Phantom server, it seems, doesn't always let you go once you've seen it. Was it a bug? A rogue AI? A collective dream of tired minds wandering too deep into the digital night? No one knows. But next time you scroll through your server list and see a new world you don't remember adding, ask yourself, do you really want to click? There's a tale among ancient players, the ones who've seen every biome, beaten every boss, and built cities reaching into the clouds, about a phenomenon called the last light. It happens only once in a player's lifetime. They say, maybe even less. A rare glitch, or perhaps something more deliberate. The last light begins like this. You spawn into a new world, just like any other. Everything feels normal. You gather wood, craft your first tools, build your first shelter. But as night falls, something is different. The sunset seems slower. The orange and purple hues stretching across the blocky sky linger longer than they should, as if time itself has caught its breath. Players report that during this slow sunset, the air feels heavier, more real, the colors richer, the shadows deeper. Animals stop moving. Even hostile mobs hesitate at the edge of the coming dark, standing frozen. And then, as the final sliver of sun sinks below the horizon, a single beam of light remains, not fading, not moving, just hanging there. A glowing column, rising from the land into the heavens, like a beacon, drawn by curiosity. Players approach. The beam doesn't emit heat or noise. It doesn't affect blocks nearby, but it pulls at you, not physically, but mentally, a feeling that you're meant to follow it. Those who reach the base of the beam find something different every time. A door, a portal frame, a stairway spiraling downward into the earth. Always something out of place, something that doesn't belong to the natural world. Entering it always leads somewhere strange. Some players found themselves walking endless hallways lined with unbreakable blocks. Others wandered dreamlike forests where the leaves whispered in languages they didn't know. A few claimed to have reached an endless sea where small islands floated in midair, like forgotten thoughts. But the most consistent part of the myth is this: no player ever finds the last light twice. Worlds where it appeared would later behave strangely. Sudden thunderstorms without clouds, villages populated by silent golems with cracked textures, entire biomes duplicated side by side, like a reflection in a broken mirror, and the players themselves changed too. Some reported strange skins replacing their own, blank-eyed versions of themselves standing in their houses. Others said when they looked into a mirror in real life, even just in passing, they thought they saw the glowing beam reflected there, just for a second behind them. No screenshots survive of the last light. Players say the phenomenon refuses to be recorded. Footage glitches, screenshots come out pure black, chat logs erase themselves. Maybe it's just a bug, a once-in-a-million collision of random code. Or maybe the last light isn't part of Minecraft at all. Maybe it's something that was always there, waiting for the right player to find it and follow. Deep underground, far below the lowest caves, beneath even the ancient cities and bedrock, there's said to be another layer, one not generated, but grown. Players call it the Echo Mines. You won't find them by digging straight down. You have to be pulled there, usually by accident. Stories say it happens when mining for too long without returning to the surface, when you lose track of time, when the light from your last torch fades and you're left alone with the deep, hollow sounds of the earth. At first, it's subtle. The walls seem to press closer. The tunnels stretch longer. Your footsteps sound heavier, as if the stone itself is listening. Then you hear it, an echo, not your own. Some players describe the sound as whispers, others as footsteps, muffled, cautious, mirroring your own. If you turn quickly, there's nothing there but empty stone. And if you keep going, following the echoes, eventually you'll find the entrance. It doesn't look like much, just a crack in the rock, darker than the surrounding stone. But once you slip through, you'll notice the change instantly. The stone glistens slightly, almost like wet obsidian. The air hums faintly, vibrating against your armor, and the mines go on forever. Twisting tunnels, massive open caverns, filled with silent waterfalls that fall into blackness. Strange formations, pillars carved into spirals, staircases leading nowhere. Minecarts half submerged in crystallized rock. But the most unsettling feature of the Echo Mines is the shadows. Not your shadow, that's normal. It's the extra ones, flickering just at the edges of torchlight, moving when nothing else does. Sometimes they appear in the shape of another player, sometimes like twisted versions of familiar mobs. A spider with too many legs, a creeper that never stops hissing, and always, the echoes follow. Some players tried marking their paths to find a way back, placing blocks, torches, even using maps. It never worked. The mines shifted behind them. Hallways collapsed silently. New ones opened where dead ends had been. Others tried logging out and back in, hoping to reset their location. They found themselves back in their base, but the echoes had followed them. Soft footsteps in the attic, chests opening and closing when no one was nearby, flickers of movement in darkened corners. It's said that once you hear the Echo Mines, they stay with you, waiting, growing, and if one day while mining, you find a crack in the stone that feels colder than it should, If you hear a second set of footsteps when you're sure you're alone, it's already too late. The echo mines have found you. Most players know that Minecraft worlds can sometimes glitch. A chunk loads wrong, water floats in the air, trees spawn inside mountains. These things are harmless, little reminders that the world is stitched together by lines of code. But some players talk about something deeper, something not just a glitch, but a whole biome that shouldn't exist. They call it the glitched biome. You won't find it by searching seeds or exploring maps. It doesn't show up unless it wants to. Most stories say it appears when worlds become very old, played for years without resets, their data slowly fraying at the edges like an old blanket. One day you might log into your world and find a thin line of strange terrain cutting across the landscape, blocks that don't belong together, sand next to packed ice, jungle trees floating above lava oceans, animals walking in slow, jerky movements as if unsure what they are. Following that line leads you to the glitched biome. It's always twilight there, a permanent state of not quite day and not quite night. The sky flickers between orange and purple, and sometimes, if you stare too long, you can see faint outlines of structures hanging upside down in the clouds. Nothing in the glitched biome works properly. Water flows upward, lava stays frozen, flowers grow on bedrock. Villagers walk backwards or sink halfway into the ground, their heads slowly turning to watch you as you pass. And somewhere, deep in the middle of it all, there's always a house. It's never the same for any two players. Sometimes it's a perfect cube made of diamond blocks. Other times it's a crumbling ruin half buried in gravel. But the house is always there, sitting quietly at the heart of the chaos, untouched by the brokenness around it. Inside, things get stranger. Paintings that shift when you're not looking. Books on shelves that rewrite themselves when you open them. Chests filled with items that don't exist anywhere else. Swords with no durability. Food that can't be eaten. Enchanted armor, labeled only redacted. And on the top floor, behind a closed door, players report hearing sounds. A heartbeat, slow and steady. Breathing, soft but urgent. Sometimes a low, rhythmic knocking. No one knows what's behind the door. Some players tried breaking it down, but the door would just reappear elsewhere, always one step ahead. Others logged off before they could open it, and when they returned, the glitched biome was gone, wiped from their world as if it had never been there. But things would never be quite right again. Blocks would misplace themselves. Music discs would play distorted tunes. Shadows would move just a little too slowly. The glitched biome doesn't want to be found twice. It simply waits, quietly, patiently, in the broken folds of forgotten worlds. Maybe someday you'll find it too. Some players, especially those who build far from spawn, and spend long nights exploring the edges of their worlds, tell of a rare phenomenon, the lanterns in the fog. It begins with a simple, quiet mist, not the kind you can see coded into the game, but something different, a grayness that seems to settle between the blocks, thick enough that even torches only push it back a few blocks at a time. Trees fade into shadow. The ground becomes soft and indistinct. The fog isn't a weather event. It doesn't show on maps. It comes and goes as it pleases, rolling in during nights when the moon is unusually large and red on the horizon. And then come the lanterns. At first you might see only one, a faint glow, swinging gently in the mist. It's easy to mistake it for a villager wandering with a torch, or maybe the light of your own base calling you home. But as you approach, more appear, soft golden lights swaying from unseen posts. They form a trail. Many players feel an overwhelming urge to follow the lights. It feels safe, somehow comforting, as if the fog itself is herding you along. The lanterns guide you through the thick mist, weaving between trees, across rivers, over hills. But those who follow the trail too far quickly realize something chilling. The landscape changes behind them. Paths they crossed vanish. Rivers they waded through are no longer there. Structures they could swear they built, small outposts, bridges, even farms, are nowhere to be found when they glance back. Only fog and more lanterns. Some players report that the lanterns eventually lead to a clearing, a perfect circle of grass, unnaturally green, untouched by the mist. At the center of the clearing stands a single massive lantern, far larger than any crafted block. It hums softly, a deep note that vibrates through the air. No one agrees on what happens next. Some say they woke up in their bed, inventory wiped clean, their entire world subtly changed. Others say their screen faded to black, and when they reloaded the game, it was as if the world had never existed at all. A few whispered that when they broke the giant lantern, they found a stairwell descending deep underground, but none ever reached the bottom. And there are those who say that, after following the lanterns, even in real life, they sometimes catch glimpses of soft golden lights at the edge of forests, or reflections in puddles that shouldn't be there. Maybe the lanterns in the fog are just another world event, rare and unexplained. Or maybe they're part of something older, something waiting in the hidden codes between updates and patches. Next time you see mist settling over your world, ask yourself, will you follow the lights, or will you let them pass you by? Scattered across old villages, strongholds, and ruins, players often find wells, simple, harmless, forgotten by most. Just a few blocks deep, a few blocks wide, a decoration, nothing more. But there are stories, quiet, often dismissed, of wells that aren't so simple. Wells that whisper. The whispering well looks normal at first. You might find it in the center of a deserted village, or hidden deep within a forest temple, surrounded by vines and moss. Sometimes it appears alone, no structures nearby, just a single well, waiting. The first sign that it's different is the sound. If you stand close, very close, and the world is quiet enough, you'll hear it, a faint murmuring, like voices drifting up from somewhere deep below. Too soft to understand, too persistent to ignore. Not the wind, not flowing water, something else entirely. Some players, curious and brave, have thrown items into the whispering well. Blocks, food, enchanted tools. Each time, the voices seem to react. A brief pause, a shift in the tone, as if judging the offering. Rarely, when the right item is thrown, usually something precious or rare, the well responds. The water at the bottom flashes with light, particles spiral upward. And then, in your inventory, an unfamiliar item might appear, a book with no title, a compass spinning wildly, a piece of paper with strange coordinates written in shaky text. But players who follow the coordinates tell darker tales. The journey is never easy. The landscape itself seems to resist, mobs spawning in impossible numbers, endless thunderstorms, tools breaking faster than they should. And when you finally reach the marked spot, you'll find another well, always deeper than the first. Dropping a torch reveals nothing. Dropping yourself down, well, no one knows for sure what happens. Players who've done it either never logged in again or returned with changed worlds. Places where the sun never rose, where villages were empty, where the sky itself seemed cracked, spider-webbed with faint pulsing lines. Some say the Whispering Well isn't part of Minecraft at all, that it taps into something older than the code, a space beneath the bedrock, beneath the world generation, beneath even the void. A place where forgotten things whisper to be remembered. If you ever find a well alone in the woods, or at the heart of a ruined village where no villagers remain, if you hear voices rising softly from its depths, you might have found a whispering well. The only question is, will you listen, or will you walk away pretending you never heard a thing? Every structure in Minecraft makes sense in its own way. Even in the weirdest world generations, everything has a reason. Caves, temples, portals, strongholds, they fit. But there's one thing that doesn't fit, a rare occurrence that players call the door without walls. It's exactly what it sounds like. A door standing alone in the world, with no frame, no room, no building around it. Just a single wooden door, placed neatly upright on grass, sand, stone, wherever it wants to be. Most players who find it assume it's a glitch, a fragment of an abandoned structure. Some break it for materials, some ignore it, but a few open it. When you open the door without walls, you might expect nothing to happen. Maybe it swings open and there's just empty space behind it. Maybe you step through and feel silly for expecting more. But then things begin to shift. The first sign is the light. The sunlight becomes dimmer, flatter, as if the world itself has gone slightly out of focus. The sky colors bleed together, blue and orange and violet, swirling gently, as if stirred by a hidden hand. Animals behave strangely. Sheep bleat in slow motion. Pigs freeze and stare at nothing. Wolves, even tamed ones, sit facing away from you, watching the distance, and the world behind you is not the same. Players who tried walking back through the door found that it was gone. No matter how far they walked, the terrain stretched on endlessly. Forests looping into deserts, deserts blending into oceans, oceans dripping into the sky like melted wax. Some tried logging out and back in. They woke up near their original spawn point. But things were subtly wrong. Random blocks missing from buildings, signs rewritten in gibberish, names of pets and villagers reversed, or missing letters. Others spoke of more haunting changes. Worlds where no mobs spawned anymore. Worlds where day never ended. A sun frozen halfway across the sky, casting long permanent shadows. Worlds where their reflection, glimpsed in water or glass, didn't quite move when they did, and always somewhere far away. Players could sometimes see another door without walls, swinging gently open and shut in an invisible breeze, waiting. There's no known fix if you cross through. No commands bring the world back to normal. It's said that once you open the door without walls, you're no longer in your world. Not fully. You're wandering through a memory of it. A version meant for someone else. A version that's watching you back. So if you ever find yourself alone in a field, and you stumble across a door where no door should be, ask yourself, is this really my world anymore? Or have I already stepped through without even knowing? Clocks in Minecraft are simple things. A circle of gold, a splash of redstone dust, a tool to tell you whether it's day or night when you're deep underground. Reliable, predictable. But there's an old myth about a clock that doesn't behave the way it should. Players call it the broken clock. It looks normal at first, maybe found in a dungeon chest, crafted by accident, or even given by a wandering trader who appeared without a sound. The broken clock ticks like any other, its little hand spinning slowly around its face. But after a while, players notice something strange. The hand doesn't match the day-night cycle. Sometimes it spins wildly, completing full rotations in seconds. Other times it crawls, barely moving even as the sun rises and sets above you. And sometimes it points at nothing at all. Players who kept the broken clock in their inventory reported strange occurrences, time behaving incorrectly, night falling just minutes after sunrise, the moon hanging in the sky for days on end, shadows growing longer, darker, stretching farther across the land. Some noticed other, smaller things too. Crops refusing to grow, villagers gathering in silent circles, water in wells rippling even without wind, and always the broken clock continued ticking, soft, steady, unnerving. It's said that if you watch the clock closely at midnight, real midnight, not in-game, and if the second hand ever stops moving, you must act quickly. You have to bury the clock, deep underground, as far from your base as possible. If you don't, the changes become permanent. Players who ignored the warning spoke of their worlds decaying over time, biomes blending into each other in impossible ways, deserts growing trees, oceans freezing solid in the sun, animals disappearing altogether, leaving the world eerily silent. And worst of all, the player's own character would begin to glitch, movement growing sluggish, health regenerating backwards. Sometimes the hotbar would flicker, revealing tools the player never crafted, tools with no names glowing faintly purple. No matter how many times they deleted the clock, burned it, threw it into lava, the ticking continued, faintly through walls, through inventory screens, even when Minecraft wasn't running, as if time itself had marked them. Some think the broken clock isn't a bug at all, but a relic, a leftover piece of a forgotten test world, an abandoned experiment in time mechanics the developers buried and never spoke about. Others believe it's not part of the game at all. If you ever craft a clock and notice it behaving strangely, if it ticks just a little too loudly in your inventory, ask yourself, is time really passing the way you think it is, or has it already run out? Every Minecraft player knows the excitement of a new update. New blocks, new mobs, new mechanics, a breath of fresh life into familiar worlds. But there are hushed rumors about an update that was never announced, never listed, and never officially released. They call it the Forgotten Update. It doesn't show up in version history. You won't find it on changelogs or patch notes. It slips into certain worlds like a ghost, a soft rewriting of the game when no one is paying attention. Players first notice small things, a new flower blooming in fields they visited 100 times, caves generating with unnatural symmetry, as if shaped by a careful hand, particles drifting from blocks that shouldn't emit anything at all. Then bigger changes begin. Crafting tables offer unfamiliar recipes. Portals activate without flint and steel, triggered instead by standing quietly nearby. Villagers speak in longer, stranger sounds, not quite words, but almost, and the world itself begins to rewrite. Forests rearrange their trees into spiral patterns overnight. Rivers dry up and expose staircases leading downward, winding and endless. Entire chunks vanish, replaced by flat plains of obsidian or polished blackstone. When players try to leave, teleporting, flying with elytra, even closing and reopening the game, they find their world subtly changed again. Biomes misnamed, coordinates looping, mobs glancing at the player with unsettling precision, almost recognition. The most chilling discovery reported by players was the mirror room, somewhere deep underground, hidden in structures that never existed before. Players found small rooms made entirely of smooth stone. No torches, no loot, just a single glass pane on one wall, reflecting not their character, but something else. Something taller, slender, dressed in pale gray, with a face that flickered like static when looked at directly. Players who touched the mirror found themselves transported to copies of their own worlds, eerily perfect, but wrong. Grass was too vibrant, water flowed too fast. Mobs didn't spawn, but their sounds echoed constantly around every corner. Once you entered the mirror world, the forgotten update finished its work. Your real world faded, overwritten by the new one. No one knows how the forgotten update installs itself. Some say it comes from using too many mods. Others believe it targets players who have left worlds abandoned too long, like a virus looking for lonely data to reshape. But one thing is certain: if you ever load into your world and find crafting recipes you didn't learn, structures you never built, or see your own reflection blink out of sync with your movements, it may already be too late. The forgotten update doesn't wait for your permission. It simply begins. Hidden deep within the vastness of the Nether, beyond the crimson forests and basalt deltas, players sometimes speak of finding a structure that isn't supposed to exist. They call it the Silent Bastion. At first, it looks like any ruined bastion, crumbling walls, treasure hidden behind blackstone. But players quickly realize something is wrong. There are no mobs inside, no piglins stomping around, no brutes guarding treasure, no sounds at all, no footsteps, no fire crackling, not even the low hum of the Nether itself. It's as if the whole place is caught in a frozen moment, untouched by the chaos that usually rules the Nether. Players who venture deeper into the Silent Bastion find that its halls stretch on endlessly. Rooms connect in impossible ways, staircases looping back on themselves, corridors bending at wrong angles. Some rooms are exact copies of others, down to the smallest detail. A chest placed just so, a cracked lantern hanging just slightly askew, and always that overwhelming silence presses against you, filling your ears like a heavy fog. Some players report seeing flickers at the edge of vision, brief glimpses of figures disappearing around corners, shadows darting through empty rooms. But when you chase them, there's nothing there. Only the endless blackstone halls and the eerie stillness. Treasure chests inside the Silent Bastion are strange too. Most are empty. A few contain items that don't exist anywhere else. Swords labeled rust, armor with negative enchantments, music discs with no title, silent when played. The deepest players, those who dared to push further into the endless maze, spoke of reaching a final room, always the same, a perfect cube, walls lined with cracked nether bricks, a single redstone torch flickering weakly in one corner. At the center of the room sits an ancient lectern, and on that lectern, an old tattered book titled Only Silence. Players who open the book say the text inside is unreadable, shifting symbols and broken letters that hurt to look at. Some claim that reading even a single page caused their game to freeze, crash, or even corrupt their save file entirely. Those who managed to quit the game found their title screens changed, the background slightly darker, the music replaced with a low thrumming hum, and the next time they entered the Nether in any world, even brand new ones, They said they could sometimes see a bastion in the distance, much larger than normal, half buried in the netherrack, waiting. Once you find the silent bastion, they say, it finds you back. So if you're exploring deep in the nether and come across a bastion where no footsteps echo, no fire burns, and no mobs stir, you might want to turn back. Because in the silent bastion, even the light doesn't dare to make a sound. Beneath the rolling hills and sunlit forests, players have always found caves, twisting tunnels, glittering minerals, dark pockets filled with bats and monsters. But there's one cave unlike any other, hidden where few dare to dig. The players who find it call it the Singing Cave. It begins with a sound, soft, nearly inaudible at first. A hum that seems to come from the stone itself. Not music exactly, but something close, a distant echoing melody that drifts through solid walls, brushing past your ears like a forgotten lullaby. The hum draws players in. Torches seem dimmer the deeper you go. Blocks break slower. The normal ambient noises of caves, water dripping, bats fluttering, fade away, leaving only the soft pulsing song to guide you. Eventually, if you follow it long enough, you find the entrance, a perfectly round tunnel, unnaturally smooth, descending into darkness. And the deeper you go, the clearer the singing becomes. Some players describe it as beautiful, haunting melodies woven with notes that no instrument in Minecraft can produce. Others say it's unsettling, like a lullaby sung for something that should never wake. The Singing Cave is different for everyone. For some, it's filled with glowing ores, blocks that pulse gently in time with the music. For others, the cave seems endless, walls slick with reflections of places they've never visited, faces they've never seen. But always there is the singing. Sometimes it grows louder behind certain walls. Players who dig toward the sound often uncover hidden chambers, massive, echoing spaces filled with smooth stone pillars, or underground lakes, so still that even throwing a stone into them makes no ripple. And at the very deepest point, there's said to be a pool, a small perfect circle of water that glows faintly. Standing at its edge, players say they can see glimpses beneath the surface, not reflections, but moving shapes. Other players perhaps, or maybe other versions of themselves. Some brave souls have tried stepping into the pool, most reported being instantly transported, not back to the surface, but to other strange places, endless forests under black skies, abandoned cities, half sunken in sand, silent oceans without islands. And no matter where they went, the singing never left them. A soft, constant song just below hearing, threading itself through their every step. Even after logging out, some players claim they could still hear it, faintly, late at night, when the world was quietest. Maybe the Singing Cave is just a strange, rare glitch of world generation.